The morning statistics release from Statistics Canada delivered a sobering wake-up call to economists and policymakers across the country. Canada's economy shed 40,800 jobs in July 2025, sinking the share of people employed to an 8-month low, effectively erasing much of the optimism generated by June's robust hiring surge. What made this reversal particularly striking was its timing, coming during what should have been peak summer employment season, when students typically flood the job market and seasonal industries ramp up their operations. The employment rate plummeted to 60.7%, marking the lowest point since November of the previous year, and signaling deeper structural challenges within the Canadian labor market. This was not merely a statistical blip, but rather a comprehensive retreat across multiple employment categories. Job losses were concentrated in full-time positions and in the private sector, suggesting that businesses were making strategic decisions to cut permanent positions rather than temporary or part-time roles, indicating a lack of confidence in near-term economic prospects. Manufacturing bore the brunt of the employment carnage, with factories across the industrial heartland of Ontario and Quebec implementing layoffs that rippled through entire communities. The automotive sector, long considered the backbone of Canadian manufacturing, witnessed production slowdowns as companies grappled with supply chain uncertainties and shifting global trade dynamics. In Windsor, Ontario, where automotive manufacturing has defined the local economy for decades, workers like Maria Santos, a 15-year veteran at a parts supplier, found herself among hundreds receiving temporary layoff notices. "We have weathered storms before, but this feels different," she explained, echoing sentiments heard across manufacturing towns from Hamilton to Oshawa. Despite the summer job market being in full swing, job losses were highly concentrated among youth ages between 15 to 24 years, at 34,000 jobs, while their unemployment rate reached nearly 15%. This represented a devastating blow to young Canadians seeking to establish their careers or earn money for education. The youth unemployment rate edged up to 14.6% in July, the highest rate since September 2010, excluding 2020 and 2021, creating a generation of workers facing unprecedented challenges in finding stable employment opportunities. The geographic distribution of job losses painted a stark picture of regional economic disparities. Alberta's 17,000 net job losses in July were the most in Canada, reflecting the province's continued struggle with energy sector volatility and resource price fluctuations. Saskatchewan also experienced significant employment declines, with both provinces demonstrating how Canada's resource-dependent regions remain vulnerable to global commodity markets and shifting energy policies. The concentration of losses in Western Canada created a tale of two economies, with some eastern regions showing modest resilience. While the traditional resource powerhouses struggled, young job seekers found themselves caught in a perfect storm of economic headwinds. Take 19-year-old Ahmed Hassan, a university student in Toronto, who spent his summer applying for retail positions, only to discover that even traditional summer jobs were becoming scarce. "I applied to over 50 places, restaurants, retail stores, even delivery services, and kept hearing the same thing. They were not hiring or had too many applicants," he recounted. His experience reflected the broader reality facing thousands of young Canadians, who typically rely on summer employment to fund their education and gain valuable work experience. The manufacturing sector's struggles extended beyond traditional heavy industries to encompass the broader supply chain ecosystem. The manufacturing industry and the transportation and warehousing sector both experienced significant contractions, reflecting how interconnected modern commerce has become. Trucking companies reported reduced shipping volumes, warehouse operators scaled back their staffing levels, and logistics coordinators found themselves managing smaller teams as the ripple effects of manufacturing slowdowns spread throughout the economy. Companies that had expanded rapidly during the pandemic boom now found themselves overstaffed for current demand levels. The psychological impact of the job losses extended far beyond the immediate financial implications. For affected workers and their families, employment counselors across the country reported increased demand for their services, while mental health professionals noted rising anxiety levels among both job seekers and employed workers fearful of potential layoffs. Community organizations in manufacturing-heavy regions organized job fairs and retraining programs, but the scale of the challenge outpaced their resources. Local food banks reported increased usage, and housing advocates warned of potential increases in rental arrears. as families struggle to maintain their standard of living, despite the employment carnage. Some economic indicators provided glimmers of hope and complexity to the narrative. The average hourly wage of permanent employees grew by 3.5% in July to 37.66 Canadian dollars per hour, against a 3.2% increase in the prior month, suggesting that workers who retained their positions were seeing modest improvements in compensation. This wage growth, while positive for employed workers, also raised questions about whether businesses were choosing to pay remaining workers more rather than maintain larger workforces, potentially indicating a structural shift in how companies approach human resource management. The July employment report served as a stark reminder of the fragility of economic recovery and the interconnected nature of modern labor markets. For policymakers, the data demanded immediate attention and potential intervention, with economists already speculating about potential Bank of Canada responses and government stimulus measures for the 40,800 Canadians who lost their jobs. However, the statistics represented something far more personal and immediate: the need to reassess their financial situations, update their resumes, and navigate an increasingly challenging job market. As summer turned toward fall, the question remained whether these losses represented a temporary setback or the beginning of a more prolonged economic adjustment that would reshape the Canadian employment landscape for months to come. That is the story behind Canada's troubling July jobs numbers. A tale of manufacturing decline, youth unemployment, and economic uncertainty that affects real families across the country. From Maria in Windsor to Ahmed in Toronto, these are not just statistics, but real Canadians navigating challenging times. As we continue to track these economic developments and their impact on communities from coast to coast, we will keep bringing you the stories behind the numbers and the human faces of Canada's changing economy. If you found this analysis helpful and want to stay informed about the latest Canadian economic news and policy developments, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for West is Best Canada news. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand what's really happening in our job market right now, because staying informed about these economic shifts is crucial for every Canadian family and business planning their future.